Hello, my name's Jackie and welcome back to my channel. And in this video, I'm going to be putting together my game plan for Camp Nanowrimo. So what does that mean? Well, first I need to choose the project that I'm working on. Then I need to combine all of the notes and scribblings I've put together from doing Storygrid, Snowflake Method, and the Storyclock. In fact, just a moment. So this is what I have. I've got my Storyclock. I think this is everything from the Snowflake Method. Maybe there might be some Storygrid stuff in here as well. And then I have this page I was working on for the Storygrid because the Storygrid method did not make sense to me. So I needed to do some pre-work in order to fill out the Storygrid stuff. I also have two spreadsheets, one with my Storygrid and one with my Snowflake Method list of scenes. So there's a lot to put together. Then once I've put all of that together, I'm going to go through what my plan is for Camp Nanowrimo, so my targets, as well as how I'm planning to track things. So let's get started. Now, if you haven't already seen my plotting playlist, please check it out. There's a link in the description and I'll also put one in a card. The reason I'm bringing it up is because I do have a little head start in this process of putting everything together, simply because rather than starting each plotting method from scratch, I took what I had from the last plotting method I tried and then I built upon it with the next one. So I started with Storygrid and then I took everything I put together with Storygrid and I used that to complete the Snowflake Method. And then once I'd completed the Snowflake Method, when I moved on to the Storyclock, I used what I already had to start filling out that Storyclock. So what that means is that in my spreadsheets, because both Snowflake Method and the Storygrid had a spreadsheet, those shouldn't need too much more. I should just be adding the extra bits from the Storyclock into them rather than going through everything I did for all three. But I will go through everything I did for all three, just to be sure. I'm hoping it doesn't take too long though. So I've put everything I have into a single spreadsheet, and actually, before I go on, did I mention that the project I'm going to be working on is reciprocal stalking? I'm not sure if I mentioned that early in the video, so announcement, my project for Camp Nanowrimo is Reciprocal Stalking, which is a book about a female protagonist called Cecily, who's slightly controlling and obsessive. She encounters Kara one day and becomes obsessed with her and wants to control her and consume her, basically. Once they get together, it turns out Kara has a similar need for control, so who knows how it will end. Anyway, that's the project I'm going to be working on, and I just finished putting all of my notes into a single spreadsheet. One of the things I noticed was because each of the plotting methods talked about different things, the scenes I came up with in different plotting methods have different elements that have been developed. So for instance, the Storygrid, one of the things it talked about was the value shift or emotional shift in a scene. That didn't happen in the Snowflake Method or Storyclock, so anything I created in those later methods doesn't cover that. Similarly, the Snowflake Method covered point of view in each of the scenes, whereas the Storyclock didn't. And I was going through my scenes and there are some where it could be Kara or Cecily, and I'm not sure which one would be best. So this is not a final plan, it still needs a bit of work. However, I do have 31 scenes listed, which is pretty good. The next step is to announce it on the Camp Nano website. So let's do that now. So I'm on the Nano website, so let's join camp. Name of my project. So Reciprocal Stalking isn't the real title, it's just my working title. It's my code name for the book at the moment. I was thinking keeping Kara or Kara's keeper, but I'm not sure. We'll see. What is the project status? Currently prepping. How much privacy do I want? No, everyone knows. It's a novel. Associate with the NaNoWrimo. Yep. Onto my goal. Okay, so I don't want to do a word count goal this time just because I'd like to try a time goal instead and see how I go, because with a word count goal, I found that I wasn't always using my time effectively. I was just trying to get my words done. Sometimes they weren't the best words. Whereas I think if I have a time goal, one, it'll be interesting to see how many words I write when I'm focused on the time rather than the words. And two, it also means I'm going to be using that time more effectively, because if I'm in a, let's say, 1.5 hour live write-in that has 30 minutes of writing sprints, that's only 30 minutes of writing time, not an hour and a half of writing time. So it will force me to track how much time I actually spend writing and working on the project. So we'll change the goal to, so this is really annoying, because in the past, Camp Nanowrimo didn't used to be about a word count goal. It used to be about, you could set your own goals, so you could talk about, words or pages or hours or minutes. And I was going to do hours. I was thinking 30 hours, but this is only giving me the option of setting a word count goal. That's really throwing a spanner into the works. I don't know why I'm so stuck on this. I think, I don't want to do 50,000 words. I don't want it to be NaNoWriMo again. I don't want to commit to a word count. NaNoWriMo website, why do you hate me? I was looking forward to doing a time-focused goal. I wonder if I can change it later. I could just make the goal a really easy one. Or not easy, but I could make it a low goal and then focus on the time instead. Yeah, let's do that. So I'm going to just do 20,000 words, hopefully more, but you and I will know my goal is 30 hours. Start date and end date is automatic. Current total word count, 0. What are the genres? Romance, maybe thriller, suspense. I don't know, like psychological thriller, is that an option? No, it is not. Okay, let's do thriller. It's not suspense though. It's the best comparison book I have is You by Caroline Kepnes, and that isn't a straight romance. It's also not a suspense thriller, it's what I'd call a psychological thriller obsession story. But anyway, we'll do this. Okay, there's no excerpt because it's new. No Pinterest, no playlist. It is my primary project. Reciprocal stalking, and because it's romance, they've got this heart-shaped hot air balloon. This is not the vibe of the book. Oh, I really don't like that it's word count focused. Okay, so I'm going to investigate this a little bit more on my own time and see what's going on. Ultimately, it's frustrating that the NaNoWriMo website has changed and I can't set the goal I want. Last year, I actually did Camp Nanowrimo in July was the first Nano thing I'd done, and then there was a separate website for it and you could set your own goal, and then before Nano, they changed the website and I actually lost all of the data from my camp last year, and it looks like they haven't fixed how to set your own goals with camp, unless they're changing the purpose of camp, which might also be a thing. However, the truth is that it's not the end of the world, because I do want to track a bunch of different things that Camp NaNowRimo wouldn't track anyway. So I've put together my own spreadsheet. So it covers the date, the day of the week, the time of the session. So by that I mean, what time of the day was it? So was it 10 a.m. to 11 a.m.? Was it 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. and so on? The activity I was doing. Now, because I was planning to do a time target, I was going to define that time as any time spent on the book rather than just writing. So if I sat down to do my words and I spent an hour outlining the next scene, that hour is included in my writing time. This is something that wasn't really trackable with NaNoWrimo last year, and I'm curious to see how much time that adds to the process. Productive time, so how many minutes were spent productively. So this is where we get into examples like if I'm doing a live write-in, and the live write-in is an hour and a half to 2 hours, and in that time there's only 60 minutes of actual writing or focused time, the productive time here would be 60 minutes rather than the hour and a half or 2 hours. Words written is obviously words written for the days when I'm writing. Then words per minute is simply the number of words divided by the number of minutes to see the pace that I keep up. Now, because I don't want to focus on word count too much, I was trying to think of other ways to measure my efficiency through this process. So I've also got scenes completed and the length of the scene. So one of the things like I've noticed is that some scenes might be quite long. You could have a 5,000 word scene and that does take a couple of days to get through. So I might do half a scene one day and 0.3 of a scene another day, or I might do 2 small scenes. So I think this is going to be an interesting way to track things. That will also link into the time spent outlining versus writing. I'm not sure how to measure that. I might need to add more columns to this. After that, we've got the scene length. So if I see, well, I only completed half a scene that day, but the scene length ended up being 5,000 words, and it's like, okay, it's not that I was less efficient, it's I was doing a longer scene. And then time to complete the scene. Total time spent. So total time spent, I was thinking like total time spent throughout the challenge. So if I'm tracking my time throughout NaNoWriMo, by the end of April, I should have my 30 hours there, or however long it takes. And then total words written is the cumulative words each day. Now, one of the things I see a lot of people doing with Nano and the Nano challenges is they just check the total word count of the document they're working on. I don't like to do that just because, one, if you go back and delete something and then write something brand new, you're actually not counting all of your new words because let's say you've deleted 500 words and then you write 1,200. If you only go off your total word count, that means you're only counting 700 of the words you've written for that day, but you actually wrote 1,200 words. So I think you should be counting the new words you've written because the purpose of this is to write more new words. The other thing is that I sometimes write in different tools like for the words, and those tools don't contain the entire document. So I'm just looking at what I wrote that day. In fact, something I want to add is tools used. So this will be things like for the words, live write-ins, and so on. Now the goal of this spreadsheet is just to figure out what works best for me as a writer. So if I notice that every Friday I don't write anything, then maybe that's a sign Fridays aren't the day for me. Or maybe on a weekend, if I notice that writing for 2 hours before I go to the gym gets me 2,000 words versus writing for 2 hours after the gym only gets me 1,200, then maybe it's better for me to write first thing. So this is what I want to learn from this spreadsheet. If we go to the second tab or the next sheet in the workbook, you'll see that I've put together a few different charts. So I've got my total word count, writing efficiency, and daily words. So total word count is simply the cumulative daily word count, and I've also got total time spent because I'm curious to see how those are correlated and whether there are any days where there are like big spikes in word count but the time doesn't go up as much, or vice versa. Writing efficiency is going to cover the productive time I spent as well as the words per minute. And that'll be interesting so I can see if one day my words per minute is really low. Well, is that a day when I wrote at a different time? Is that a certain day of the week that keeps happening? Was I using a tool that day or not? So that sort of thing. And then the last one is simply daily words. So I can see just a visual of what the average is. So that's how I'm tracking this. If you think this sort of spreadsheet would be interesting for you, please let me know and I can create like a Google Doc with the template that you can use for your own project. All in all, I think I'm probably 90% as prepared as I'd like to be for Camp NaNoWriMo. I do want to go through my list of scenes again and just confirm whose point of view it is. I'd like to revisit some of the things from StoryGrid and the Snowflake Method. So from StoryGrid, I'd like to revisit the value shift or the emotional shift in each scene. And from Snowflake Method, if you look at that video, you'll see that Randy Ingermanson splits up scenes into like key milestones. So these are the initial goal of the scene, the conflict that the protagonist faces, the setback, how they react, the dilemma, so the decision they need to make, and then what is the decision they make. I haven't done that for every single scene, so I don't think it's going to work for every single scene, but I'd like to try doing it just to flesh things out a little bit more. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. The main thing is I do have my list of scenes and If nothing happens between now and April 1st, I will have enough that I can start writing. So I'm excited to get started. And now I'd love to hear from you. So are you planning to do Camp Nanowrimo in April? If you are, please let me know in the comments and share, 1, what your project is that you're working on, and 2, if Camp Nanowrimo lets you set your own goal, what will your goal be? Do you have a target word count you want to hit? Is it a certain amount of time spent? Or is it something that's less measurable, like you just like to do a bit of writing every day, which is a really bad example because that is measurable. Maybe it's just you'd like to grow as a writer and have higher writing self-esteem. I have no idea what I'm talking about. It's been a long day. So let me know in the comments what you're working on in Camp Nano and what your goal is. If you would like to create a shared cabin, please let me know, because my cabin mate from last July is not going to be participating this time, which means I'm a lonely little camper, so I would love your company. Other than that, if you like this video, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I will see you next time. Bye.